It is my job to teach. So, in some magical time or place, that might have meant that I give the students a subject matter or technique or information that they would have to learn and then show in one way, shape, or form that they are able to do the tasks that I have taught them about. And to teach that thing meant that the kids were able to behave with some kind of decorum, what you could call common sense. And that means that they would be coming into the class ready and willing to learn, and while they're in the class, they take in the knowledge that you are bestowing upon them, and then they would process that and be willing and able to show you that they can complete the task at hand. I don't know when that magical time was, but in this day and age, the common sense or decorum or whatever have you that the students would need to complete that is not the typical, is not the normal, not the norm. And so the question becomes, how do kids learn that? So one would think that either society just being would provide them with this wherewithal, this how to behave, how to conduct themselves, codes of conduct. And if it's not coming from society, then it would be coming from the home. And that would be assuming that the people in the home, namely parents, would be the ones teaching them this stuff. And so, in one way, shape, or form, like I mentioned before, this is not the norm. This is, generally speaking, not how the classroom is anymore. So if it's not society and it's not the parents or the home that is teaching them this common sense, then that falls on the teacher, whether they like it or not. Because ultimately, if the classroom isn't functioning, if there is no homeostasis in the classroom, then how is the teacher supposed to teach? And so, whether it's liked or not, it is the role of the teacher to now become to teach more than they are required, to teach the decorum, the common sense, the code of conduct, wherewithal, all those things, in order to teach what they were supposed to be teaching in the first place. Now, this would also be well and good, because a good teacher would have the wherewithal to be able to teach these things to some extent. But to teach these things also dips into the idea of ethics and morals, and why the student should behave or act the way they do. And there are those in the world that would call this didactic, or me influencing the kids in a negative way. And then the teachers get sued, get negative remarks. They are used as the straw man to be the example of why the kids, what's wrong with the kids these days, and why their work ethic is so bad, and why they don't know the things that they need to function in the world. And honestly, if you're blaming us, you need to take a look at yourself, because we're in the front lines of trying to educate and prepare the students to be ready for life. But we can just give a grade, and it's relative to what the student has or has not done in your class. So here we've got these little check marks that the kids need to achieve. Did you do this? Yes. Okay, there's that check mark. Did you do this? Okay, yes, you did that. And some kids are capable of doing those check marks very quickly, but also at the bare minimum. And other kids are unable to do those check marks, and some kids take a long time to do those check marks. So we have all these different personalities and these different types of people in our classes. And this is getting much harder because the people are getting more and more confused or challenged with where they are, or what part of the world they're supposed to be of. So not only are we teaching conduct and wherewithal and things like that, we're also having to deal with psychology and emotions and things like that, because again, if these things are not addressed, there's no way the classroom can work. Like, if everybody's running around screaming and crying and like dealing with all the things that are going on in their lives, how are we expecting them to learn math, science, social studies, things that they don't relate as important to their daily lives? So now teachers are not only required to do the subject matter, but they're also to teach common sense and morals and values and psychology and deal with the emotions, and ultimately the things that are exterior from what is happening in the school, just so that they can do the thing that they were paid to do. So it's kind of like an equation, really. And in an ideal situation, you'd have a healthy mother, father figure that would have the best interest in the student and the wherewithal to raise the student and invest in their upbringing. And that is the exception to the rule more times than not. And this might not be in all cases, because, you know, I've only been teaching since 2007, and I've only taught in the greater Milwaukee area and parts of Illinois, and some speckling of different places too. And so my experience is limited, but I have yet to see something that would counter this general belief that I'm establishing. So what do we do? In my opinion, it comes down to establishing common sense again. But to understand what common sense is, we need to stop focusing on job preparation and things like that and start looking at what is needed for the day-to-day. You know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are the students fed? Are they drinking enough water? Do they get enough sleep? Is their hygiene good? Are they washed and teeth brushed and nails clipped and ears cleaned out and all the other things that seem or are thought to be common sense that are not being achieved? Then we can start working up. And this is what is considered basic knowledge, you know, like, oh yeah, you gotta be clean, you gotta eat, you gotta sleep, you know. And then you also need to feel comfortable, supported, safe in those places. And once those things are achieved, then we can start talking about education. Then we can start talking about the other stuff. But if we don't deal with the most basic things, there's no way education can work. And unfortunately, that's the norm. That's the general. So education's getting harder. And teachers are losing respect. And not only from students, but parents. Not all, but a lot more than there should be. And all to the effect of we're trying to educate and prepare the next generation to be in the world. And in my opinion, the easiest way to do that, and this is probably an unpopular opinion, is make schools not a legal requirement for students to attend. So give them the choice. And if they want to go to school, they can go to school. And they can get their high school diploma. And then it will mean something again. I mean, truth be told, the kids that are being passed on for legal reasons and no other are not cut out to be in society, or more so graduating from high school. They have not done what most teachers would consider to be enough to graduate. And yet, because of laws and because of those little check boxes that I mentioned before, they are. And the bare minimum is far below the average. And so, not only would getting rid of legal requirements of kids going to school, there would be a value put back in that. Because if they don't want to learn, they can be sent home, and we don't have to go through the legal repercussions or anything anymore, because they can either be there to learn or not. And then the parents will have to be more involved because they have to go to work, and if the kid's acting up or not working in school and they get sent home, or they don't get to pass on to the next grade, then the parents have to be like, you better get your act together because I got to go to work. And I need a babysitter, truth be told. And babysitters cost a lot of money. And yet, here we are, teachers, getting paid very little, to be truthful for what we do, as all the aforementioned entails. And yet, here we are babysitting dozens of students in our classes for hours. And on top of that, we're giving them information and things and measuring them and preparing them for the world. So basically, we're raising kids. So we've got back to this equation. We've got ideally a healthy father, healthy mother that are invested in their child's wherewithal. But if that's not the case, then the teacher becomes the supplement. I mean, they are regardless, but even more so. So if there's not a mom or a dad or any type of healthy figure, the teacher becomes the fix or the additive to this completion. So if you look at it as equation, mom plus dad equals student. And then anything that's lacking in that equation, the teacher becomes. And then you can use all the divides and multiplies and all the things that a math equation could entail. So if education is to work today, there needs to be value put in it. But right now, giving it away for free and making it legally obligated is countering that. But to make it, and I'm not saying that there should be a payment, but ultimately taxpayers are paying for schools, you know. So if you're going to pay for something and you have students that don't value it, why are they there? And ultimately, if they don't want to, if there's people out there that say teachers should not be dealing with morals, values, or emotions or psychology with kids, that's fine. You can keep them home. And then they can figure out who is going to do all the raising and do all the therapy and everything, what have you, with their children. So it's getting harder. And the No Child Left Behind, the integration laws that are being done for schools aren't helping anybody. Yeah, I get it. It's maybe your heart's in the right place. But these laws are made by people that are not in classrooms. So it's like somebody telling a world-renowned rock climber how to do their rock climbing. Oh, you need to put your hand there. You need to take this stuff with you, when they've never climbed 5 feet up a flight of stairs, you know? So, so much. So ultimately, the integration of students into classrooms that have behavioral, emotional, psychological disorders or handicaps, whatever you want to call it, whatever's politically correct right now, they need help. And I'm not disputing that. But to expect these students to be integrated in the classroom just so that they can say that this helps them get into society, you fools. Like, they need assistance, they need help, they need one-on-one, they need at least one-on-one, maybe two-on-one, whatever, depending on whatever their needs are. But to put them in a classroom with a bunch of other kids where they're going to be overstimulated and the teacher is trying to keep pace for all the students in the class. And then you have these students that need the extra assistance, and there's only a few paras or specialists or whatever working with these kids. How is that supposed to work? So ultimately, this goes back to the point where if people want their kids to go to school, they need to do the legwork of making sure that their kids are prepared for school while they're at school, that their focus is there. And if they need any special assistance, they need to take advantage, because there's plenty, but there's a lot of people out there that don't want their kids to be in specialized programs or anything. And those specialized programs are spread too thin because they just say, oh, we can put the money in regular classroom. It's so much, and it's getting more. And now we've got the kids coming in that have gone through the COVID era, where they were on computers and at home and lost all this social recognition and this time management skills, and for lack of a better term, just having continuity, stagnancy, or not stagnancy, but consistency in their lives. Like, okay, this period's this, we have lunch now. That's what school does, is it gives consistency. And if they don't have that, especially in households that are, for lack of a better term, dysfunctional in some way, shape, or form, or do not have the support or the wherewithal to take care of kids, now we've got those kids coming up in the grades, and it's apparent. So there needs to be something done with education. That's my 2 cents. So that's all I have to say about that. Do more, do better.